The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
This is Speedball Mike Bailey. You're listening to Keepin It Strong Style. Yes.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we will preview the road to destruction and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com. Frequently updated and features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, how you doing, man?
I'm ready to wrap this shit up right away because it is Labor Day. We are recording on a holiday. And do we even really give a fuck about the road to destruction anyways? Why are we doing this?
Because we can't break our streak of being the longest running weekly episodic New Japan Pro Wrestling podcast.
We're out here breaking our back for this business that we love.
We love. Oh, man.
No, yeah, we got a good show coming up. And, we've had a little bit of a reprieve, if you will, a break ever since the finals of the G1. Jeremy, you're caught up on the G1 finals.
Yeah, I did watch the G1 this weekend. I was sick. You can probably hear it in my voice still a little bit. So it was a great weekend. Just lay in bed and catch up on some of the stuff I missed when I was out in the UK. So yeah, I watched the semifinals. I watched Evil versus Okada. I watched Will Ospreay and Naito. I watched the finals, Okada Naito. So yeah, I'm all wrapped up. I finished off my star ratings thread, so I'm all caught up. Unfortunately
for you, the rest of the world, we moved on. We don't care that you watched it, but good for you. No, I'm just playing. Did you also cram in Impact and All-Star Junior Festival shows?
No, I didn't watch those yet.
Hey, I don't know. There might be a couple of things you might want to cherry pick from a couple of those shows.
Yes, I did listen to the review from you and Floyd. I caught up on the two Keeping It Strong Styles I missed also. So I heard you and Floyd give some great recommendations. I know Floyd loved Kevin Knight. So I will catch up on the show because, like I said, I want to be, make sure I have an informed ballot come award season for Junior Match of the Year.
I wouldn't say you're going to watch the whole show, but there's a couple things you might want to cherry pick from each show, but that's pretty cool. So you heard me wish you happy birthday and congratulations.
I did, yes. So yeah, thank you.
Well, let's dive into this. So it is September 4th, which means August has passed, and we have to award the wrestler and match of the month. And I guess I'll start us off without any further ado. A very strong month, a lot of fantastic matches. But we have given the award for match of the month to the semifinal match between Will Ospreay and Tetsuya Naito. I think Dave Meltzer gave it like 6.25 stars, something like that. Just a masterpiece.
Yeah, match was absolutely incredible. They did it again, and I mean, just all the sequences and counters. Ospreay was bumping like a madman, especially after Naito got knocked loopy. That last Destino Ospreay bump, the bump Ospreay took was super crazy to make it look so devastating. And yeah, these guys just went out here, absolutely killed it. I know a lot of people, they might like the Okada Naito match better. Obviously, both, I think, match of the year contenders. But for me, this Ospreay Naito match just edged out a little bit, and it was just a masterpiece.
Well, if you listened to the episode with me and Chris, you know that I was very, very high on on Naito and Okada. And I think that might be my favorite match they've ever had.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, so much of their rivalry kind of played out in the storytelling of that match.
Yeah, storytelling. Cinema,
baby. Yeah, but Ospreay Naito, obviously the incredible moves, the high pace. Dude, Naito throwing the knees after the hip toss thing, that was brutal. Obviously, Ospreay hitting sky twisters everywhere. I mean, just so much great stuff. Awesome match.
A lot of little stuff, and then the drama down the stretch obviously is like what tops it off.
Yeah. So yeah, that's our August match of the month, August wrestler of the month. We're going to go with the winner of the G1 Climax 33, the leader of LIJ, Tetsuya Naito.
Yeah, Naito had incredible matches in this month. You look at the match with Zack Sabre Jr., you look at the match with Tanahashi, the matches he had with Okada and Ospreay in the finals. He killed it that month.
Yeah, of course, great month for Naito, especially a guy who, his knees are in borrowed time. Sometimes he could be hit or miss, but yeah, he was really dialed in towards this final stretch of the G1. And then, that back-to-back semifinal and final against Ospreay and Okada, especially being knocked loopy in the Ospreay match, to come back and have that great match of Okada, in just a few hours the next day was incredible. So that wraps up August match of the month, wrestler of the month. So next on the docket, we have the Destruction Tour, which will kick off this upcoming weekend, September 8th. So we're going to go through the upcoming Road to shows that will be happening this weekend. And then we'll also just kind of maybe just talk about the Destruction in Kobe and Ryogoku, just kind of a bigger picture of what all this stuff is building towards. So the first Road to Destruction night is September 8th from Korakuen Hall. So show will open up. We got Taguchi and Yo versus Doki and Kanemaru. Master Wato, Oscar Lube, Shoto Umino, and Yuji Nagata versus Strong Style and Hanma. Got Goto, Yano, and Yoshihashi versus Bad Dude, Tito, Mikey Nichols, and Shane Hayes of TMDK. Tenkoji teaming up with Tiger Mask and Togi Makabe to take on Okada, Ishii, Tanahashi, and Yuto Nakashima. Then we got Hiromu, Shingo, Naito, and Yosutsuji versus United Empire, with Callum Newman making his New Japan debut. Great Okan, Hanare, and Jeff Cobb. Semi-main event, NJPW World Television title match. Zack Sabre Jr. defends against Oleg Boltin. And then the main event will be House of Torture's Evil and Show taking on Sonata and Taichi from Just Five Guys.
Oh, I'm a little surprised there. I thought for some reason, that Zack and Oleg was the main event. Is it not?
According to NJPW1972.com, it's slotted in the semi-main spot.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, usually the most accurate, version of the card is going to be on NJPW1972.com. So, I'll have to trust you on that one. But I thought, I don't know, for some reason, I thought the last time I looked at it
unless
was
they've
opposite.
Changed. Yeah, I just went on the site just now. Yeah,
I'm looking at it too, and you're right. So interesting. So I guess that even somewhat, I knew that the Taichi Sonata Show Evil tag match was going to be like a pretty big preview, but that probably elevates the importance of that match even just a little bit more beyond just being a major match on the card.
Yeah, that's building to two big matches. So we know Evil will be challenging for the world title against Sonata at Destruction in Ryogoku, October 9th. And then Show will be challenging Taichi for the KOPW title And
and I think what's interesting with this match is typically you would expect the junior on the card to be the de facto pin eater, and it's still a possibility. But with the fact that Sonata and Taichi are the champions, and you've got challengers and Show and Evil, and they're both heels, I think that opens up the possibility for. I would say the only thing I couldn't see happening here, no matter what, I can't see Evil losing, but I could hypothetically see, to varying degrees, scenarios where Sonata, Taichi, or Show end up doing the favor on that night.
Yeah, I think probably for the most probably compelling thing, you want Evil or Show to get a win there to kind of make them as more viable contenders for their matches coming up. Show challenging at Destruction in Kobe for the KOPW against Taichi. So you want to make those guys look credible, especially Show challenging a heavyweight. So you also, it's Talent Torture. You can do a bunch of shenanigans. You could have Dick Togo and Yujiro involved, and Show can pin Taichi.
Yeah, I feel like Show pinning Taichi might be the move there because he's the least credible of the challengers in the match, and kind of needs more momentum going into the match as opposed to Evil, who he's had a few big wins here recently.
Yeah.
But I think the big match that most people are paying attention to on this card is going to be Zack Sabre Jr. versus Oleg Boltin. And, this is the first really big test we've ever seen for Oleg Boltin. We've gotten a little bit of taste of, his skill set. We've seen him, go up against a few different young lions. We've seen him in, multi-man tag matches, but it's still very early into his pro wrestling career. And to see him on a semi-main event in Cork and Hall against Zack Sabre Jr. for a title, that's a huge spot. And I can't recall the last time I saw an active – I can't even think of the last time there was an active lion challenging for a title at all.
Right. We'd have a question here from MJS PR. It says, Boltin Oleg has a big opportunity ahead of him versus Zack. What is the company expecting to see from him in this position?
Well, he's not exactly a spring chicken. The guy's 30 years old, so he's also a long tenured amateur wrestler in the world rankings. So probably has some wear and tear in his body. Obviously, the guy is a physical specimen. I'm looking on Cage Match right now, and he has, even though these haven't a lot of them are dark matches, altogether he's got 27 professional wrestling matches under his belt. So, he's got a little bit of experience here. And I think what they're probably looking for is to see if he can be guided to a credible, title match with, a technician master like Zack Sabre Jr., someone that can guide him through. And if he can display, a lot of the things that you're looking for out of a star, like charisma, passion, fighting spirit, fire, the sort of stuff that you'd probably want to build off of if you intend to push somebody as a major star, which I think they've always had those intentions when it comes to Oleg Boltin.
Yeah, we've seen from day one with this guy, he's gotten a lot of treatment that typical young lions don't get. The special exhibition, Wrestle Kingdom, the big press release. A lot of stuff has been built around this guy, and they made a big deal about his official young lion debut. So yeah, I think they see big things for him, and like you said, he's not a spring chicken. It's almost kind of like a make or break. Like they need to kind of invest in this guy and get him going. And so yeah, this is going to be a test. Get him out there with Zack Sabre Jr., one of the best wrestlers in the world. Let's see if he can follow Zack's instruction and have a great match here. And if he can hold up in a guy there like Zack, it's like, all right, well, we can put this guy in there with Okada. We can put him in there with Naito, Will, all these other top guys, and he's going to be able to have a good match.
The interesting thing, I'm looking at the statistics here, and he's got a pretty good winning percentage, but in singles matches, he's undefeated. So, he's only had 10 singles matches of record. The first 5 were all time limit draws, but his last 5 have all been against other young lions, and he's beaten them all. So, they're definitely giving him a push right out the gate. It's very reminiscent of what we saw from Katsuya Kitamura when he was being pushed in a similar position.
Yeah, going through that best of 7 series that he was doing, that challenge series. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a big spot for Boltin Oleg. I think a lot of people are going to be, watching this match to kind of see what the future is for him and how it goes. But yeah, definitely a big opportunity. Looking forward to it. Yeah,
I'm kind of likening this to like a proto Ric Flair versus Lex Luger or Sting or whatever, Road Warrior Hawk, any of those large men that, Scott Steiner, guys that Flair was able to kind of guide to a very good, credible match. And I think that that's probably similar to what we're going to see here with, Zach guiding Oleg Boltin to a match. Maybe this will be a little bit of, and I'm not saying he's Tom McGee, but maybe this will be a little bit of a Bret Hart, Tom McGee situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be a great, it'll be another defense for Zach. I believe this will be V13 for Zach. So Zach's been having an incredible title run. Great champion this year.
Yeah, and I know, granted, like you look at Orange Cassidy just had like 30-something title defenses.
Yeah, 31.
AEW, which that's crazy. But like in New Japan, the title defenses are a lot less frequent. And if you're looking at just modern times, there's very few people that have ever had as many title defenses of any belt in New Japan history, especially within the IWGP period of the company. Already, I mean, you probably have to figure that Zach's got one of the like 5 best title defense records, maybe like top 3 in New Japan history for the IWGP title, era.
Yeah, I mean, we're only in September. He's already at 13. I mean, if he holds the belt for the remainder of the year, he could probably get to 20, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at like Okada's legendary IWGP title reign, that was 12 defenses, and he's about to pass that, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So the next show that we have is the following day, also a Cork and Hall show on September 9th. We have Satoshi Kojima versus Oscar Luebe, Taguchi and Yo versus Doki and Taka Michinoku, Master Wato, Shota Umino, Hanma and Nagata versus Strong Style and Yuto Nakashima, Goto, Yano, and Yoshihashi, along with Oleg Boltin, taking on Bad Dude Tito, Mikey Nichols, Shane Haste, and Zack Sabre Jr. Evil Show Yujiro versus Sonata, Taichi, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. And the top 2 matches of the evening, the never openweight 6-man tag team titles are on the line as Chaos, Okada and Ishii, teaming up with Hiroshi Tanahashi, the current reigning champions, defend their belts against Hiroyoshi Tenzan, Tiger Mask 4, and Togi Makabe. And then your main event is a 10-man elimination tag team match as the LIJ team of Bushi, Hiromu, Shingo, Naito, and Tsuji take on the United Empire team of Callum Newman, Great O'Khan, Hinare, Jeff Cobb, and Will Ospreay.
Yeah, so I'll see once again the semi-main and main are the 2 big talking points here. In the semi-main event, we have that that dream team of Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi defending against Tenzan, Tiger Mask, and Togi Makabe, kind of a random trio here. I didn't watch a lot of the undercard stuff. How did this matchup end up? Like, how did these guys end up becoming the number 1 contenders?
I don't recall that there was anything that set this up, and if there was, I missed it. I don't even recall them interacting with one another. Although I did see that New Japan World, I think their account on Reddit or maybe the NJPW Global, they have a full preview with Tenzan, setting up this match. But I don't recall anything from the G1 finals that was leading to this match in particular.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, so very kind of interesting, mix of, New Japan dads here challenging for the never 6-man titles. Got to imagine this will be a easy win defense here for Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi.
Yeah, I mean, you would figure that that's the case. I think this is probably a situation where the best you can hope for is a more lively and entertaining match than you would normally expect out of the dads. In a situation like this. And we've seen some similar matchups in the past couple of years. One that comes to mind is like the Nakanishi retirement match.
Oh, yeah.
Which ended up being a lot better than people expected. So maybe we see something similar to that, but there's no way that Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi lose to the 4th generation dads here.
Yeah. So, yeah, it should be a win there. And then in the main event, we have LIJ versus United Empire. And, of course, this is all building to Jeff Cobb versus Naito, as well as, let's see, is there any other thing that's coming up for the UE and LIJ?
There's a special special singles match between Shingo and Great O'Khan, isn't there?
Yes. So, yeah, that's Destruction in Kobe.
Plus,
Shingo.
Yota Tsuji is challenging Will Ospreay for the US/UK/maybe IC title. I don't know.
Yeah, so let's touch about that real quick. There's a lot of rumors that potentially the Intercontinental title is coming back, and this whole US/UK title is going to be the way to bring it back. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't know. Well, part of me is like I'm open to the idea of bringing the IC title back. I thought it was a asinine decision to get rid of it in the first place, especially when some of the argument was that we had too many titles at the time, but they've added 5 titles to the company since they got rid of that one. But the issue at hand is basically this: they took the IWGP Heavyweight title and Intercontinental title lineages and merged them and vacated them entirely and started a new lineage for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. And part of the rationale was that we're creating a new belt out of 2 belts and retiring both of them. So the problem with that is if you somehow create another IC title, it's very hard to logically claim connection to the original belt and its lineage. It's almost like you're creating a second version with it. If it has a new lineage, that's fine. Like it's just a spiritual successor. That would be fine. But I don't see how you can separate the IWGP and the IC titles lineages since you decided to use both of them to create the World Heavyweight titles lineage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, kind of reminds me back when WWE, they unified the IC title, the world title, and then brought the IC title back, but they kept the lineage.
See, that would have been easier because in that situation, WWE kept the World Heavyweight Championships lineage and they just merged the IC title into that belt. And when they brought the IC title back, it had its own lineage because it wasn't borrowing from the World Heavyweight title. This would have been much easier if New Japan had decided to just retire the IC belt and create a new World Heavyweight title, but let it share the original IWGP Heavyweight titles lineage and never have eradicated that.
Yeah.
Then this would be much easier across the board. But again, these are all just rumors and speculations, but there is a little bit of smoke to the fire because we saw Lord Gideon Gray and Takami Obari kind of hinting at the idea of the IC title coming back. And, Chris was on the show and sort of, I don't know, hinting around something about an IC title. And I was like, this motherfucker knows something we don't know. And he probably doesn't. He's probably just speculating as a fan like the rest of us. But, more often than not, sometimes he's right.
Yeah.
I think he was sniffing this one out a little early.
Yeah. So interesting to see what they end up doing here. But yeah, this LIJ UE feud should be great. Also, we got Callum Newman, like we mentioned, making his debut in New Japan on this tour, part of this unit. So I'm interested to see how he's going to kind of acclimate himself to the New Japan style and mix with United Empire.
Yeah, who's going to win this match is like Bushi. he thrives in this match for whatever reason.
Yeah, he always
survives.
Wins these like multi-eliminations.
Yeah, it's going to come down to like Bushi and like Callum Newman, and he's going to eliminate Callum Newman and win the match for everybody.
Yeah.
Either that or like Hanare is going to win.
Yeah. Well, then that's going to lead us to night 30 of the tour, which will be September 10th. This is going to be a Blue Justice 13 show. So we got Tenzan, Bolak Olten, Tiger Mask, and Togi Makabe against Oscar Lube, Satoshi Kojima, Tomioka Hanma, and Yuzo Nakashima. Taguchi and Yo versus the Bebop tag team of Tanahashi and Toru Yano. Got Goto, Okada, Ishii, and Yoshihashi against TMDK, Bad Tito, Nicholas Haste, and Sabre. Bushi, Shingo, and Naito versus Great Okan, Hanare, and Jeff Cobb. Hiromu Takahashi and Yota Tsuji versus Callum Newman and Will Ospreay. Semi-main event, Dick Togo, Evil, Sho, and Yujiro versus Doki, Sanada, Taichi, and Kanemaru of Just Five Guys. And then the main event, we're going to see the first of a series of matchup here, a best of 7 series, 6-man tag match between the team of Master Wato, Shota Umino, and Yuji Nagata versus Strong Style of El Desperado, Minoru Suzuki, and Ren Narita.
Yeah, I think overall this show obviously doesn't have as many high-end, main event / semi-main event matches the way that the two preceding shows did. But I think the 5th and the 6th match are nice little preview tags. We're going to get to see Hiromu and Tsuji against Callum Newman and Will Ospreay, which should be really fun. And then, they're going to continue the Taichi and Sonata and Evil and Show series, giving us another big preview there. But this 6-man tag best of 7 series, like I said on the previous episode, I don't recall if they've ever done a best of 7 series in New Japan. And if they have, I'm not really privy to it, or I can't recall it. So I do think that this is pretty interesting, and it's something, cool that they're doing that kind of keeps, Shota Umino and Master Wato and Desperado and Ren Reed, all these guys, kind of busy in a period where there's not anything major lined up for those guys. Because, they could have easily just floated into the background and just, busy themselves with multi-man tags. But instead, this series actually has heat behind it. It has a purpose. People will have investment. And by the time they're going to blow it off at the Destruction and Ryogoku show in October, that's where if it goes all 7, which I'm sure it will. I can't recall a best of 7 series never going the full 7.
Right.
That's where we're going to get the final payoff. So this is going to be a great series all throughout this tour. And I hope all the matches make tape. I'm sure they probably will.
Yeah, this should be a lot of fun. You could create, number of contenders for the Never 6-man titles out of this feud here. Also, you can continue the feud between Umino and Narita, kind of fuel that going. Also, Suzuki and Nagata have a history and a feud there. So yeah, a lot of interesting elements all part of this matchup. Also, Wato and Desperado, they've had a little feud as well. So yeah, it should be fun. And like you mentioned, like it's going to add some stakes to what would traditionally kind of be another random multi-man on a Road 2 show. But now there's going to be some stakes. There's going to be these guys are kind of fighting for pride here. Who's the best trio? And like I said, it could lead to one of these teams being future challengers for the Never 6-man titles.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm a little bit of a sucker for the best of 7 series, so I know Rich Ladd is listening. He's like, it's not going to compete with, the Elite versus
Death Triangle
versus Death Triangle. And it's like, well, it doesn't need to, Rich.
Oh man, hey, you never know. Umino might be flipping.
I'm sure there will be some flips, but one thing that they've been hyping up in the lead up to this is, the long-standing feud between Nagata and Suzuki. And those are matches where if you haven't gone back and watched some of those classic matches, I highly recommend that you do, because they are just so hard hitting. And like, even just a couple years ago during the pandemic,
that G1.
During the empty arena period, during the New Japan Cup.
That's what I meant. Yeah, New Japan Cup, yeah.
They had those crazy matches, and I was like almost 5 stars on one of them. No one else was, but I fucking love their matches. So
yeah, those guys, great chemistry, great matchup. So yeah, should be a lot of fun when they mix it up in this best 7 here.
Well, that is going to do it for the 3 shows that are upcoming, but we do have New Japan's Destruction in Kobe on September 24th, coming from Kobe World Hall, and then another big Destruction show, the final major Destruction show in October, on October 9th, coming from Ryogoku, Kogugukan. I never know how to say that. And a lot of the preview matches that we've kind of just glossed over are leading to the main matches on these 2 shows. So we thought we'd just kind of go over them. I don't know. This doesn't necessarily serve as like the official preview for these shows. I don't know how in depth we want to go, but it's probably a good idea to talk about the different feuds that are going on, because it feels sort of like we have a bit of a reset now after the G1's over.
Yeah, I think looking at these cards, it's a great way to kind of have the big picture of what this whole tour is building. So also these are kind of the pillars of the tour, with the Road 2.
Pillarism.
With the Road 2 shows kind of in between and building to these shows. So I think it's a good idea to kind of look at the shows. Also, when we get closer, we'll do like official previews and predictions. September 24th, Kobe World Hall, we got Kevin Knight and Tiger Mask versus the Bullet Club War Dogs, Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney. Then we got House of Torture, Dick Togo, Evil and Udro versus Doki Sanada and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Alex Coughlin, Chase Owens, David Finley, Gabe Kidd, and Gato of Bull Club versus the GOD team of El Fantasmo, Hikuleo, Jado, Tamatonga, and Tangaloa. Leo Rush and Yo versus Bushi and Hiromu. Okada and Ishii versus Bad Dude Tito and Zack Sabre Jr. And then the title matches, we have the provisional KOPW title, Taichi defends against Sho. IWGP Tag Team title match, Bishamon will defend against Nichols and Haste. And then Shingo Takagi versus Great Okan, Tetsuya Naito versus Jeff Cobb, and the main event for the IWGP US/UK heavyweight title, Will Ospreay defends against Yota Tsuji.
Yeah, and one thing that's kind of nice here is like, depending on how you look at it, this tour is leading to the major show in October, but we have another, pretty big show just a couple weeks prior to that. And like, I would say about half of this show is previewing the show coming up in Ryogoku, whereas the second half of the show is sort of like payoffs to a lot of the feuds that are taking place throughout the tour. We've had complaints in the past where they've had multiple big shows like this, but in very close succession, that it feels like they're doing two shows, but just separating it and making it into two separate shows, basically to profit off of it and doing it all together. Whereas these are broken up with enough distance that I feel like the first show kind of serves as like a little bit of a precursor, still has some big matches, still in a pretty big venue, and it's going to have some good energy, but it sort of makes logical sense the way it's building to the October show, which I think is a little bit better and less of a cop out than your typical, night one, night two, and everything's split.
Yeah, I think they've built up enough programs to kind of that are worthy of having, two big shows on this tour.
Yeah. It looks to me, though, I guess we could go top to bottom. So we've got the IWGP United States title match, Will Ospreay versus Yota Tsuji. That's one of the biggest programs throughout the tour that's being built. But it seems like they've already sort of kind of tipped their hand a little bit that Will Ospreay is likely retaining here. Not that you wouldn't necessarily expect that he wouldn't, but because of the end of Royal Quest, where Zack Sabre Jr. came out and challenged Will Ospreay for the US-UK title at Royal Quest 3 that's coming up, it seems more than likely that he's going to retain unless there's some sort of major swerve in the works.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with it being the UK Copper Box, you want to draw. I think doing Ospreay Sabre for the quote-unquote UK title makes a ton of sense. So I get why they shot that angle at Rev Pro on the 11th anniversary show, but it also kind of does hurt Tsuji's chances of people believing in Tsuji winning this match.
Another talking point, going back to the IC discussion, is like Zach is the current reigning New Japan World Television Champion, and it is kind of interesting that as the TV champion, he's challenging also for the red belt, and maybe some sort of merger situation is in order for them to create the IC belt. But then part of me is also wondering, like, is that appropriate because they just created the New Japan World title? Although there are those people that really hate the design and look of that belt and would be probably more than happy for the white strap to come back and replace these belts.
Yeah, I don't know. The TV title's grown on me, and I like the purpose it serves. I like the 15-minute matches.
Same.
I think it's a great thing. Obviously you have Zach establishing it, but I think having a young guy beat Zach and kind of having that, like was created for, to be kind of a younger guy title and kind of a more of a high-speed, faster pace match, I think is a kind of a great title to have.
I agree, but it'll be interesting there, and I do think it's a little bit of a shame that it feels like Tsuji couldn't win unless they're going to pull some sort of major swerve and take the belt off of him. Obviously, I think one of the major reasons that they're thinking about doing Zach and Will at the Copper Box too is because the persistent rumors that Will is potentially on his way out of the company come January, and maybe, regardless of whether you do a title switch there or not, that's probably likely the very last potential time for them to do Zach and Will in the UK for New Japan, like, ever. So, that could hypothetically be the culmination of their feud unless they both wind up in the same company down the road.
Right, yeah.
So beyond that, we have two special singles matches: Shingo Takagi versus Great Okan and Tetsuya Naito versus Jeff Cobb. Traditionally, the winner of the G1 would go on to defend their title shot, and I don't think that that's the case anymore. Probably because of the precedent that Okada set last year. So, we're getting Naito and Cobb. It is kind of a grudge match. Cobb did beat Naito in the G1, and maybe Cobb would have this. Maybe a win for Cobb would put him into some sort of contention. But Naito's the G1 winner. He's going on to the Tokyo Dome, win, lose, or draw. He did say that he was thinking about just walking out of the match after 5 seconds. It's going to be interesting, but I'm sure Naito's picking up the win there regardless.
Yeah, hypothetically, if Cobb were to win, I guess you could either do like a 3-way, Cobb, Naito, Sonata at the Tokyo Dome, or you have Cobb challenge a power struggle in November. There's some options you could do, but yeah, I think
we only do 3-way main events in the Tokyo Dome when Brock Lesnar signs with the company. That's the only time. But Shingo and Great Okan, these guys have even had recent history with each other going back to just this year. So that match feels a lot more like some sort of crossroads match for both guys. Neither one of them qualified for the final 8 during the G1 this year. Both of them are looking to get into contention for gold once again, wherever that might be within the company. So this one feels like it probably has a lot more stakes than even Naito Cobb, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah, a win here is going to tell you who they're going to be pushing going towards the rest of the fall and going into Wrestle Kingdom season.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe, I love Shingo. I want him to be the guy, but, there is the argument that they haven't really utilized Okan the way that they should. And again, if there's an expectation, hypothetically, that Will's on the way out, maybe you should start putting some pieces into place to accommodate for, what could be a weakened United Empire.
Yeah.
Following that, prior to that, we also have the IWGP Tag Team titles. Bishamon is defending against Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste. There's been a lot of talk online about the fact that we're at the 99th title reign and who's going to be the 100th champions and how major that would be. And I've heard a lot of people kind of discuss their speculations. And it feels to me like most likely if TMDK doesn't win here, then we're probably looking at World Tag League and whoever wins that being the guys to take the belts off Bishamon.
Yeah, I think this is TMDK's third title challenge this year. They've challenged, I think they challenged Bishamon earlier in the year. They challenged Aussie Open, and now I believe this is their third time challenging. So these guys, they're kind of becoming failing challengers. So at this point, I think they got to kind of win here.
That's what I would do. And I mean, I think it might just be a little bit of happenstance that they're the 100th champions. Some people put a lot of stock into that. They want to see New Japan do something special, but I have to wonder, unless you're going to put like a dream team together of some sort, like Bishamon would have been the appropriate guys to win it the 100th time, and they are the 99th champion. So I see no harm in going with TMDK.
Yeah.
And then the other big match preceding that was Taichi versus Sho, which is being previewed all throughout the tour. And it's a KOPW match. We don't know what those stipulations are. We're still a ways out, and I'm sure we'll get a better idea of what kind of match they might be building to as we see them in these preview matches.
Yeah, I'm sure Sho will try to do some kind of House of Torture, wrenches.
Bullshit.
Yeah, wrenches are illegal. Who knows what ties?
I say they do a scaffold match.
Oh my. No one can get hurt from that.
And aside from that, we don't have to relitigate, but the first 5 matches of the show are pretty good previews, leading to Destruction in Ryogoku on October 9th. On that show, which is even a bigger show, we have a lot of big matches. The first one is a singles match between Tangelo and Chase Owens. Second match of the night, IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles as the Bull Club War Dogs, Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney defend against the intergalactic jet setters Kevin Knight and Kushida. Following that, there's a 6-man tag best of 7 series, match 7, provided they get to match 7, but they're already advertising it, so I'm sure we're going to get there. As Team Nagata takes on Team Suzuki of Strong Style. Fourth match of the night, the Strong Openweight Tag Team titles are on the line as Bullet Club War Dogs, Alex Coughlin, and Gabe Kidd defend against GOD's El Fantasmo and Hikuleo. Fifth match of the night, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title is on the line as Hiromu defends against Mike Bailey and Leo Rush. Sixth match of the night, Never Openweight title is being defended as the champion Dave Finlay defends against Tama Tonga, former champion. And then your main event, the IWGP World Heavyweight titles on the line as the champion Sonata defends against Evil.
Yeah, pretty good looking card here. I do know that I think a few more matches will probably be announced as we progress down the tour. I'm sure we'll get a couple more multi-mans, maybe something else will pop up. But what we have here so far is a pretty strong card.
Yeah, they don't have anything announced for like Okada or Tanahashi just yet, or like Will or Zach. So it'll be interesting. We'll see. Potentially something lines up for stars of their caliber, essentially.
Yeah, you could do some multi-mans, or maybe something else will come up with those guys. But yeah. Really excited, looking forward to this card. That junior title match, Hiromu, Bailey, and Leo Rush should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, there's no matches that don't have stakes or a title attached to them, and the ones that don't, we are like singles matches, which are rare in New Japan. Tangaloa and Chase Owens, I don't know, take it or leave it. I'm sure there's going to be people, complaining about that one, and with good reason, but. At the end of the day, it's a pretty good card. I don't know how jived I am about Sonata and Evil again. But it is what it is. And Naito's not booked for this show either. So, there's still time for some of the bigger stars to get, matches on the show.
Right. Just knowing how New Japan books, I'm going to imagine they'll probably end up doing another LIJ versus United Empire multi-man match. Kind of keep that rivalry going until after this tour is done. So they'll probably do that, and then maybe Okada and Tanahashi and Ishii against some other random trio.
And this is a week after the major, just phenomenal, monumental, Antonio Inoki Wrestle Dream memorial card.
That apparently I guess New Japan Talent will be at.
Yeah, Tony Khan said New Japan Talent is definitely going to be sent over. I was in the group chat today with Rich, and I did a little bit digging because he kind of shared that with us that at the end of last night's pay-per-view that was shared, and I started looking and doing a little bit of digging to see like who actually is available, and it's like I have the full list here. I mean, I'm not going to go through the full list, but this will give you an idea. The big stars you could get are Will, Zack Sabre, and Kenta. Beyond that, you could get Bishamon, Catch 22, Bad Luck Fale, Hiroyoshi Tenzan, Satoshi Kojima, Robbie Eagles, Rocky Romero, Taguchi, Ishimori, Makabe, Hanma, and then basically anyone from Strong, anyone from the Fale Dojo, Lions that are on excursion. That's pretty much who's available. So not to deride anybody that was listed, but aside from like the 3 big stars, you're talking about basically Gaijins, juniors, the guys that are in Australia, dudes that are on excursion, dads, and then people from Strong. Like that's not exactly like your top tier New Japan like representation.
Right. It's not something with the fans, the US fans. No, it's not Naito, it's not Tanahashi, Ishii, Suzuki.
Yeah, and again, it's not to besmirch any of the talent. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Rocky Romero, and I'm a big fan of Zack Sabre Jr., Will Ospreay. But it's I think a lot of the fan base who are not knowledgeable about New Japan, they're thinking they're gearing up for a Forbidden Door Part 2, and it's not happening.
Yeah,
I also think there's people that think that they're going to make a sudden last minute change to a Cork and Hall show that they're advertising, and they're not going to do that.
I would be very surprised if they did. I mean, if they're going to do it, they should do it now, since that show it's a month away. Do it, let people know, hey, Okada's not going to be here, Naito's not going to be here. They're going to the States, so sorry about the inconvenience. Here's the card change. So
Yeah, if they do that now, I'll shut my mouth about the thing and I won't bring it up again. But I really don't think that's happening.
Yeah. You also did mention that they could do like original LA Dojo guys that were training under Inoki, like Bryan Danielson, TJP, Samoa Joe.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing where you have quite a few of those people available, and a lot of them already work for AEW. But like Katsuri Shibata, Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, Rocky Romero, Ricky Reyes, TJP, like all those people are pretty much available and could be on the show, and maybe they'll do some sort of like tribute, because those are people that were actually connected to Inoki. So, maybe I don't know. And if someone's listening, maybe I'm giving them the idea. I don't know.
You're welcome, TK.
You're welcome. But I guess we should, jump into the news. Unless you wanted to talk about Road to Destruction some more.
No, I mean we'll cover the bigger shows as we get closer to them. Do official preview and predictions. So yeah, let's jump into the news.
All right, awesome. So Ryohei Oiwa is doing his excursion at Noah. He had his first tag match just recently at the N1 Finals. He was teaming up with Kato Kiyomiya. They took on the team of who they wrestle. It was Zack Sabre Jr.
and
Ogawa, which was like the semi-main event or like the second from the top. We did have a couple of questions. Barry Walsh said, "I still think that he's going to be, in all capitals, the man." He got a huge reaction from the crowd and looks absolutely huge. I was surprised he was getting Oiwa chants from those in attendance. I know it's almost impossible to tell, but 2 years in his career, how do you see his progression? Buy Oiwa stock now.
Yeah, so I saw the clip of Oiwa's new look, RIP to the mullet. He has some, out of the black trunks. And so, yeah, it's kind of the first time, at least since we've been covering New Japan, that a young lion has chose to do their excursion domestically. And there's an interview on the site where Oiwa talks about, wanting to be different and choosing to do an excursion at Noah domestically. So, yeah, definitely kind of a different thing, kind of a cool opportunity. I think his new look looks great. He's progressed a lot as a young lion. He has a lot, of the tools and skills that you learn in the dojo. I don't know if he's going to be quote unquote the man or the ace. And he's a tough, set of generation to deal with, but he's definitely a great guy, a great wrestler. And I think that the Noah excursion should help progress him more.
I'm still really high in Oiwa and Fujita and think that they are phenomenal. But like you said, Jeremy, they got a lot of top end talented, lion guys that have come before them. And, I'm still waiting on what's his face? What's wrong with
Uemura?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Uemura to come back because he's the guy that I've got most of my stonks.
Yeah, I think Uemura could be the man.
But they've got him teamed up with Joe Hendry. I think their tag team name is Joe, or I don't know. I'm getting like flabbergasted. What's his name again?
Uemura.
Yeah, and Yujo, I think is the name of the team or something. Did you see that?
I saw that they've been teaming, but I haven't seen any of the footage of them teaming.
Yeah, it's fucking weird. Like, the longer this excursion is going on, the more I'm getting nervous that it's not an excursion.
He's just a full-time Impact guy now.
I don't know. I hope that's not the case, but I'm starting to remember like Kenzo Suzuki, like just never came back. And, this whole thing recently with Katsura Shibata where it's like, oh yeah, he signed to, New Japan. He's got a contract with them. And then he's like, oh yeah, I'm not with them. And then he's like, oh yeah, I'm with them. And then I don't know if he works for the company or not. I literally can't tell. And that's kind of what it's like with Uemura. So, but yeah, Oiwa, I didn't see this match. I did see that he's got pants now. So, I'm glad to hear he got reactions, and I'll probably check it out.
Yeah.
Ushi Road CEO Takaki Kadani noted that they're looking at expanding both New Japan and Stardom into Southeast Asia. So this was something that I brought up a couple weeks ago during the episode I did with Floyd. But Jeremy, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I know that Kadani kind of mentioned, AEW's rise has kind of hurt their growth in the U.S. market, so they're looking at other markets to expand, and they're doing stuff in the UK, and now they want to do more stuff in Southeast Asia. So I think it's kind of a good call. It's like, yeah, why saturate a market that's, already has a ton of competition? Like, try to branch out in other territories. Also, I still think they need a U.S. presence. They should continue to try and build their U.S. presence, but also kind of tapping into their other audiences. Also, the UK is a great base for them. Copperbox tickets are on sale. I think they're doing pretty great. UK fans love New Japan. So, yeah, I think they can tap into this Southeast Asian market and, create a new source of revenue for them.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of consumption habits there are for wrestling in that part of the world, but this is a business strategy that One Championship has employed, and it's been pretty successful for them. And all of this is kind of also interesting given some of the comments that Rocky made during the interview that we had with him prior to the interview with Takaki Kidani. And I don't know how much that's all going to be affected, because the wrestling industry is very fluid, but Rocky had brought up, some of his hopes, goals, and aspirations when it came to the Strong brand in the US. So, I guess we'll watch and see how it plays out, but very interesting stuff there. In other news, there will be a 10-bell salute at 6:15 p.m. in Corkin Hall on September 8th before Road to Destruction in honor of Terry Funk. Another big news story that came out this past week was a Reddit post in both the New Japan Reddit as well as I believe it's the Pro Wrestling School Reddit, which I'm actually a part of, and an unidentified individual that has been part of the Fale Dojo basically like leaked his experience with the Fale Dojo, and it's if you haven't read it, I recommend you go online and read it. It's very lengthy. But we got questions about it. But I guess before we get to those questions, I mean, Jeremy, what was your, basically, I guess, how could you summarize what was kind of conveyed there?
Yeah, I'll see us overall just a really horrible experience for this trainee. Some of it is some stuff you kind of hear from a lot of wrestling schools where the head trainer is not really training. He mentioned Bad Luck Fale not really training. A lot of it was on Tony Kazina, and Tony Kazina kind of having not the best training methods and using slurs and different kind of curse words at the trainees, and people getting hurt. A guy had got a concussion, was forced to continue training, passing out, living conditions, having mold. This kind of thing of, he was talking about throwing Japan out as this kind of allure, like, oh, we'll get you to Japan, but they send guys when they're not ready, and then nobody ever really gets to go to Japan. This is this whole kind of crazy story about just the overall life as a Fale Dojo trainee, and the payment, and you're paying for these intakes, you're not getting a lot of training, you're barely wrestling. It's this whole crazy thing.
Yeah, it sounded like they're inundated with a lot of prospective, wrestlers or trainees that are joining in hopes to potentially make it to Japan or find a way. And if you've listened to our interview with Robbie Eagles earlier this year, talking about how difficult it is to make it as a professional wrestler in Australia, just because of the geography and the wrestling landscape, it kind of makes sense to me why so many individuals are going to the Fale Dojo to try and create a path or avenue for themselves to make it maybe perhaps to New Japan Pro Wrestling. But, realistically, if we're just going to, be very honest, there've been basically Yuto Nakashima, who is a Japanese domestic resident, couldn't make it in the New Japan Noge Dojo initially and went to Australia, or it's New Zealand, right?
Yeah,
went to New Zealand to join the Fale Dojo, and then was brought back to the Noge Dojo when he was ready, and then made it there. But there have been no New Zealand stars that have come out of the Fale Dojo and made it to Japan. The closest thing you could probably point to is like Michael Richards, who my understanding is he is currently signed to a Lions contract, and maybe we'll see him in the future. But as it stands now, he did one tour with the company, and that was years ago. And since then, even post-pandemic, has not been back, has not worked in Japan for the company. And there's been maybe the only other person you could probably point to is like Hanare. So like basically like Hanare and Yuto Nakashima are the two guys in however many years, basically since this show's been going, so like 5 years, that have actually come over from their dojo. And they've had, at this point, what sounds like hundreds of people spending, basically it sounds like these are 8-week intakes. They're spending around $5,000 to come in and potentially, that sounds like an exorbitant cost.
Yeah, it's like not even covering like their rent for their staying.
Yeah. It does not sound like a good situation. Now, granted, and not just New Japan, but Puroresu in general doesn't have the most sterling reputation when it comes to training and trainees. There have been lots of scandals over the years and things that have occurred in these private dojo systems. A lot of that is systemic, going back to some of the issues that have existed in the past in sumo culture, and they've kind of persisted and into Puroresu as well. But I have to imagine, just based on the output that comes from a lot of these pro companies, that in a dojo system, even though it's tough and even though there's probably some very questionable tactics and treatments, the proof is in the pudding. And a lot of those guys come out and they're stars and they're incredible wrestlers. But this Fale Dojo has been going on for a very long time. And another thing they talked about is like they don't have the right training conditions.
Right,
like
they don't, boxing ring.
Yeah, they're working in a boxing ring, which I don't know if you guys know the difference, but a boxing ring has no give. And, you can't really learn to work properly in a boxing ring because you can't bump properly. Essentially, it's the closest thing to that would be like working in a lucha libre ring, which is typically, or like in the UK, they worked in boxing rings. So you don't bump on those. You typically majorly roll. Yeah, because it's too painful to learn how to work and bump properly. And so, I don't know if anyone else is corroborating this individual story, but it sounds pretty horrific, honestly. We do have some questions here. Death Triangle 720 said, have you heard about what's been going on in the New Zealand dojo? At Burger King's Road said, made a post about, he said at Burger King Road made a post about it, and Super J-Cast tweeted about it. It's a serious issue that needs to be rectified by New Japan. And then we were asked a question by the Super J-Cast asking us, how do you fix the Fale Dojo mess? And honestly, Jeremy, my simple answer, and I know that people don't probably want to hear this, especially people associated with that dojo, but like me personally, I don't think it's worth the headache. I would just cut ties.
Yeah, I think New Japan, they need to remove, the easiest thing would be to just remove their name and affiliation from this. I know also, I don't know what Bad Luck Fale's contract status is. He hasn't really worked much in New Japan recently. But yeah, I think they need to cut ties, or if they really want to do this, they have to clean house, get rid of Fale, get rid of Kazina, make Robbie Eagles or somebody that, the lead trainer, and totally change it up.
Well, here's the thing. One of the things that was stated in that interview was that Fale is very much respected and looked up to by the wrestlers in the intakes. And when he is there, he is beneficial and helpful in teaching them. But he was like, he's hardly there, so we don't learn that much. And there's no oversight. And there's not a lot of like good leadership and guidance. So I don't know how much financial benefit perhaps New Japan gets from this. I have to imagine that if there is some sort of relationship, that they're probably getting a cut of the proceeds. And I don't know if it's in their best interest, to, kind of turn a blind eye to what's been going on, because as long as the money keeps coming in. But at the end of the day, you look at what they're doing with the LA Dojo Academy, which is no longer a dojo system. It's now just a pro wrestling training school. And there probably should be some parameters and provisions and oversights that are put into place, and that whole thing, because wrestling is wrestling. It's a carny business. Grifters are going to grift, and there are people who are going to take advantage of people's hopes and dreams. And I got to tell you, like, obviously I've done some wrestling training, nothing as extensive as what those guys are doing, but like, you're not going to catch me paying $5,000 for 8 weeks to go in there and just run around and do squats and learn how to do a couple rolls. Like,
yeah,
that's not worth $5,000.
Yeah. Apparently when Fale is not there, like people who've already graduated from the intakes are the ones leading like the classes and training instead of like an actual wrestler.
Yeah, that's not good. So it sounds very messy, and I think if they can't get a handle on it, they probably, and basically, like you said, clean house and have the right oversights and safeties put into place and everything like that, then they probably shouldn't be connected to it, because it's not right for people to believe that they're going to have some sort of ability to make it over to New Japan Pro Wrestling when there's no track record of that at all. And I understand that there was a pandemic and it probably did put a halt on certain aspirations that they had. But even now, the three main guys who are tied to that dojo, Andrew Villalobos, Richard Mulu, and Michael Richards, they've never come to Japan. We've never seen, Alan Wright and some of the other guys from that dojo. So it's not right.
Yeah, and for the Tamashi shows, only certain guys are able to work those shows. They're filling it out with Australian, New Zealand indie guys. So like, even that's not even a promising opportunity to have if you're not at a certain skill level.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's kind of also, I've seen some of those shows, and I mean, you've heard some of my reviews, and I've been like, I don't know if you want to be using. you kind of have to decide what this is. Is it a developmental system for the guys from the Fale Dojo, and that's strictly what it is? Which they, in their defense, they are running some Fale Dojo shows recently for the first time, which is cool. But at the same time, it's like what the work they're doing is very, very low level green boy work. I mean, I've been there. It's part of the business. You have to break in somewhere, but I don't know if the Tamashi brand, if you're trying to launch it as a third brand, if you can build it off the back of the guys from that dojo. So far, what we've seen, the answer would be no. You do need help from the PWA guys and their partners in Australia. So it's a fine line.
Yeah.
But it's not good, and this issue probably needs a little bit more attention, and it's something that the higher-ups in New Japan should probably act swiftly concerning.
Yeah, they need to put a swift end to this mess right away.
Last bits of news: Minoru Suzuki will be appearing for MLW on October 14th. The news was announced at MLW Fury Road on Saturday night from Philadelphia 2300 Arena. Gabe Kidd was recently announced as the number one contender for Michael Oku, so it looks like he'll probably be the next in line to get a Rev Pro Undisputed British Heavyweight Championship title match. Kosei Fujita teamed up with Robbie Eagles and made his Australia debut, as he's also on his excursion along with Oiwa. And then Hiromu defeated Rising Hayato, and then Kojima challenged for the All Japan Triple Crown Championship against Yumo Aoyagi. Both of those were at the recent All Japan show, and Kojima was unsuccessful in his challenge, but I heard the match was pretty good. So
nice. I'll have to check that out. Well, that's going to bring us to questions, and then we'll get to recommended match of the week. So first from Random Dude 04080918. Would you want CM Punk in the NJPW, and would it be a good fit or not in ring?
Honestly, I mean, I don't want to go into the whole CM Punk thing, but I do think that the possibility of him potentially showing up in New Japan, it's not zero. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, could I see him signing a long-term deal and making regular appearances with the company? No, not really.
Yeah, I doubt it.
But could I see him working 1 to 2 dates, similar to a deal like what Sasha Banks or Mercedes Moné has done recently, or like the initial run that Chris Jericho worked out for himself before they extended his deal? I could see something like that potentially. I don't know what the optics would look like, considering New Japan and AEW do have the working relationship, but that hasn't seemed to stop AEW from like booking AAA talent in the past,
or AEW booking Kota Ibushi.
So there is the possibility, and if CM Punk wants to continue wrestling, and the price is right, I could see him working New Japan. I have no interest in it, but I don't think that CM Punk is a top level wrestler any longer. right? I think that there's a very, very high end working level that he's just not quite up to at this point. But that doesn't mean he's not a great wrestler. He is still a great wrestler. He's just not at the tip top. And there's a very high working level in New Japan. But, I think even some of the top guys and him could have a very good match if called upon. Like, do I think that there could potentially be money for the company if they brought him in and did him and Okada, or him and Tanahashi, or him and Will Ospreay or something like that? I do. So I wouldn't say that it's a 0% chance. I don't know if they've got the deep pockets to afford to bring him in, but it is something he's always wanted to do. He's never worked New Japan. So I wouldn't be surprised if he came here, did a couple dates, and then bounced to WWE afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's definitely higher than 0% chance. Like you, I have no interest in seeing CM Punk in New Japan. I'm glad that he's not, in AEW anymore, and also see him there. And I would care not to see him in New Japan, but there is money that could be made with him potentially doing a one-off match against Okada or another top star. I mean, maybe Will Ospreay. I don't think he would be the best fit in ring. Like you mentioned, there's a high working standard. Obviously, a pro like Okada and Ospreay and those guys could probably carry him through to a great matchup, and it would be fine. But I have a hard time seeing him potentially doing a full-time schedule. I know he's mentioned wanting to do a G1 in the past. I have a hard time seeing him get through a G1. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I would not want him, and I don't think he's the best fit.
I also would struggle to, see how the politics of all that would work out with them bringing him in, unless the only person I could see him willingly laying down for is maybe Okada in a one-off, but I don't even know about that.
Yeah, he's probably gonna want win a title, have a big match like that, Okada.
Yeah.
Next question, it says, while the full card for the Kobe World Hall show has been set for a while, the Ryogoku show still has some matches left to be announced. What do you expect them to be?
I don't know yet, but like I said, there's a couple big names out there they haven't booked anything for, so it's probably something surrounding that.
Yeah, I mean, the most likely thing is we're probably going to get a bunch of multi-mans based off of the results from Destruction in Kobe. His last question here, the October 1st Korakuen show happens on the same day as the Wrestle Dream pay-per-view that Tony Khan announced. As such, how do you see that situation panning out? I mean, we kind of already covered that, but...
I think they'll send some of the guys that I listed. I think the most likely scenario is they send a few New Japan dads. Rocky shows up, maybe Tom Lawler.
Bishamon.
You get Bishamon and some of the United Empire guys, and then you get Zack Sabre Jr. and Will Ospreay, maybe Kenta.
Yeah.
And that will be enough for them to kind of say there's New Japan involvement.
Yeah. I mean, they can do a Bishamon versus FTR rematch.
Yeah.
There's some options. Next question here from Reddit user PP McShitter. With CM Punk leaving AEW, say he goes to New Japan as Trips and TK doesn't want him, who do you see being Punk's first major opponent, and when would it happen, i.e. Wrestle Kingdom 18, Dominion, G1 Climax, Fighting Spirit, Unleashed, etc.?
We don't really know what the clauses are in terms of non-compete with his contract, so any speculation we don't really know. The only two matches that really stand out to me as being the matches I listed, him and Ospreay, him and Okada, and him and Tanahashi are the big ones. I think for some fans, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that him and Naito wouldn't be a big deal, but I feel for the Western audience, they probably wouldn't care as much. And I feel I don't think CM Punk is very up on his Puroresu. I don't see him, logging into the old New Japan world too often. So he probably knows who Naito is. I don't know how familiar he is with his work. I don't see him wanting to get down with Tomohiro Ishii or Shingo Takagi.
Yeah.
I don't think he's about that life, but could I see him wanting to have a classic with, Tanahashi or Okada or Will? Yeah.
Yeah, he was supposed to have that Tanahashi match at Forbidden Door 1, but got hurt, so maybe he still wants to have that match. Also, there's the Kenta match, but that match was probably never, ever going to happen. Those guys hate each other. And Kenta's not going to want to lay down for CM Punk, especially not in Japan. So yeah, the Okada match is probably the most likely match, and like you said, we don't know what his non-compete is, if there is one, but I would guess if he would come in, it's going to be at a Wrestle Kingdom show or Dominion.
Yeah.
Next question from Def Triangle 720. Outside of the wrestling, what can New Japan do to bring in other forms of revenue?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you can, the stuff that other companies do, merchandising, trying to secure better television deals for themselves. I don't know. I really couldn't speak too much to the business side of, a Japanese corporation. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't really have the in and outs of exactly what they're doing outside of the shows. So like you mentioned, the TV deals, obviously that's a really big thing in America. And I know they do have some TV deals in Japan, but if they can find a way to increase revenue from media, merchandise are probably the two low-hanging fruits for them to get more revenue. Next question here from DJ_Aftershock. Thoughts on my goofy-ass idea of Kosei Vegeta being the first young lion to ever win an NJPW title by winning the 6-man titles alongside Shane and Mikey in TMDK?
Well, he's not a young lion any longer, so it's not possible.
Yeah, he's a graduator, right?
Yes.
So he would just be TMDK team winning the trio title. Last question 7252 says the start of the Road to Destruction begins this week. So my question to you guys is, what's y'all's favorite Destruction match from New Japan? I don't have a top favorite, but one of mine has to be Tanahashi versus Zack Sabre Jr. for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship in 2017.
Oh, I don't even remember what's ever been on a
the one
on a Destruction show.
The one that stands out to me, Kenny Omega versus Ishii, Destruction 2019 or 2018.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I couldn't remember if that was on Power Struggle or Destruction. So, I don't know. Those events all kind of merge into one thing for me,
Yeah, the Ishii Omega was definitely Destruction because it was September because Ishii had beat Kenny in the G1. Kenny was champion, and then they did the title match on Destruction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm like looking at some of these shows. Destruction in Kobe. I don't know. There's a really good Tanahashi Shibata match from Destruction in 2014. That's probably got to be up there. Maybe that's my answer. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see here. Next question from MJSPR. Says Destruction is a sneaky good card, mix of good singles and title matches, but it doesn't have a ton of momentum. Has American Wrestling, AEW specifically, sucked the air out of the room for NJPW?
I mean, maybe, but I mean, it's. I don't know how much the crossover fan bases there actually is at this point. It seems like we're getting to a point where, because of the amount of content that is being put out by all these different groups, it's becoming more and more difficult to be a diehard, watch every show, pay attention to everything that they're doing for all these different, fan of these different companies. So, New Japan puts out a lot of content. AEW puts out a lot of content. So does WWE. And then beyond that, you have your pick of all the pro wrestling companies, all the lucha companies, all the independents, all the Joshis, stuff from the UK. I mean, there's a lot of fucking wrestling out there. And so I think we're getting more defined fandoms as opposed to in the past where people that would have been like major, New Japan, heavy fans also were watching Lucha Underground, also were watching, like fucking NXT and Super Indies and ROH and stuff like that. And I think that that day is coming to a head where the fandoms are becoming more and more defined and less intertwined. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if necessarily it's a situation where AEW has sucked the air out of the room. I mean, certainly we're at a place where we're a couple weeks removed from the G1 finals, and there hasn't been a lot of news. There hasn't been a lot of activity or interest in what's going on with New Japan, but they're also not currently running shows. And traditionally this period is sort of like a lull period after the G1, just before we get into dome season. So it's not that uncommon that the interest sort of lulls and takes a dip. And at the same time, overall interest in New Japan has dropped in the States anyway. So to answer your question, maybe, yeah, there might be something to the idea that, I think most Western fans pay more attention to the major Western companies. But I think once we get into some of these major tours and shows, you'll start seeing the activity up. I'm not saying it's going to be a renaissance and that we're going to be back to 2018, 2019 levels of interest, but I don't see that there's as much, so much of like AEW is dominating the news space as much as it is like we're just inactive right now, or at least New Japan is.
Yeah, and I feel like the Western audience they're kind of diving into the bigger shows. So, Destruction in Kobe, Ryogoku, there'll probably be more people watching, a little bit more discussion. And then after that, we're, the Road to Wrestle Kingdom. So people kind of be paying attention to see what the Tokyo Dome card's going to be looking like.
And I think we are getting Power Struggle and then Tag League this year. That's what it looks like. Yeah,
so we're getting a Junior Tag League that's like on the road to Power Struggle, then Power Struggle, and then we'll get so that's straight up heavyweight World Tag League.
Power Struggle is the end of our year, so
yeah,
gotta get ready for rewards.
Crazy. See, next questions. 3 questions here from Barry Walls. He says, I see on NJPW 1972 they are saying All In 2023 was the biggest wrestling crowd in history, but wasn't Collision in Korea, which Inoki put together even bigger in terms of attendance. I know people in Wembley were not fearing their life if they didn't attend, but still slightly misleading, is it not?
Well, let's be very clear here. They did not say that it was the largest wrestling crowd in history. Or maybe New Japan 1972 said that. I don't know. But AEW said that it was the largest paid attendance in professional wrestling history. And from in modern era, verifiable, that is probably true. Or at least, that's what the records show. It's probably a debate and a in-depth discussion for another podcast with more knowledge and insight. But, realistically, when you're talking about the biggest modern shows, you're talking about WrestleMania 32, WrestleMania 3, and SummerSlam 92, and All In 2023. And all 4 of those shows realistically had over 80,000 people in attendance. How much over? All In, they're saying that aside from just paid attendance, including comps and stuff like that, they had over 90,000 people in the building on that day, which I think is plausible. I also think it's possible that, based on my studies, that SummerSlam 92 and WrestleMania 3 might have also had a similar number. It's hard to verify, but I don't really think that we should be giving props realistically to the Collision in Korea shows, because they were mandated attendance by a dictator with a non-paid attendance,
Right, yeah. People were literally forced to go. No, but they didn't give their hard-earned money. Like, I want to watch this wrestling show.
It's very similar. And I mean, this might sound like a cop-out to some people, but it's like, when WCW had the shows in Sturgis, or like the Bash at the Beach in 1995, they claimed 100,000 people were there because they were, I forget what it was, but they're at Venice Beach during some big festival. Like, there's 100,000 people here. It's like they didn't pay. They're not here to watch your show. Yeah, but they're here. It's like, all right, that's kind of the same thing. Or like when WWF did a couple matches at Rolling Loud, and someone tried to claim that attendance. There's like 80,000 plus people here. It's like, dude, they're here for Rolling Loud.
Right, they came for a concert.
They're not here to watch Bianca Belair. And I think it would be anyone that tries to realistically make the argument that those Collision in Korea shows hold some sort of weight when it comes to drawing ability and, dollars earned. It's really idiotic.
Yeah. Be like Jericho was like, I sold out Wembley with Fozzy.
Yeah, he didn't. but that would be like the same thing too. Yeah.
His next question is, the sad news of the Funker has passed, although he never wrestled for New Japan. Do you not find it odd they never acknowledged it on NJPW 1972? Terry was a big deal in Japan and was, to me, how Tanahashi is for Josh. This death hits hard. New Japan never made a mention of Kitamura's death when it happened either. I just find it a bit odd. Any opinions?
I mean, I don't know. I don't frequent the njpw1972.com website too often. But they did make
I thought
mention
they
of it.
did, yeah.
Well, they made mention of it online on Twitter for sure,
Yeah.
and they are doing the tribute to him pre-show. Also, that's not correct. He did work New Japan, not often, but I mean, he had his first match, his first tour with the company in 1995, teaming with Sabu, and he worked singles matches during that tour, and then he worked a couple. I think he worked a Wrestle Kingdom. He worked a couple off and on matches throughout the years, not a lot, but yeah, he did have a couple tours with New Japan. But yeah, and New Japan acknowledged Kitamura's death as well.
Yeah.
I don't think they had major write-ups in njpw1972.com. Maybe there was something to that. Maybe they should have. I don't know. I don't run their website, but they definitely acknowledged those deaths online.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. So yeah, maybe if he missed it, or I don't know, but yeah, they definitely mentioned them. Last question here says, all the GOAT talk got me thinking about this. As good as Okada is, why is he never mentioned? Is it possible to be as good and heralded as he is, yet still be underrated or underappreciated, perhaps?
I don't know. It's all relative. It depends on your opinion. I know a lot of knowledgeable wrestling fans that think he's the greatest of all time. So I hear his name brought up pretty regularly, honestly. But there are definitely people who probably don't feel that way for a number of reasons. And at the end of the day, it's all relative anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Okada, he's kind of one of those situations where it's almost like a Yankee or some kind of big sports dynasty where they win so much you don't want to talk about them, or they're so great you don't want to talk about them. And so, maybe people just don't kind of omit him for that reason. But yeah, I do think he's one of the greatest. And like you said, most of the people we talk to do kind of acknowledge Okada's greatness. A lot of people who don't are really like hardcore WWE, only watch WWE fans, and they think Roman Reigns is the greatest.
Yeah, I mean, most of the, if I'm talking to someone and they don't think Okada is, and I'm not saying they have to think he's the greatest or, necessarily, like, for instance, you might not think that he's the greatest, right? But if you think that me including him in my list of like the tip top all-time greats is egregious, then, we're on different wavelengths. We can't have that discussion.
Right, yeah. All right, last two questions here from Hawaiian Punch BV. Says, with New Japan looking to potentially expand internationally, what territory should they invest their time into? Should they do what AJPW does and look for talent in smaller wrestling territories in Europe? They discovered Francisco Akira from Italy and are currently developing a mass wrestler from France named, is that Agile Blanc?
I don't know how to pronounce French words, so I couldn't tell you. I mean, I think New Japan scouts from internationally and around the world, and yeah, maybe they will turn more of their attention to, Europe and that sort of thing. I mean, there have been plenty of times in the past where New Japan has opened the door to other regions and other types of wrestlers. I remember like in the late 80s when they brought in all the Soviet workers, and I remember in the mid 80s when they brought in all the shoot style guys, and again in the 90s when they did that. The mid 90s when they brought in all the shindy, junior workers from all over the domestics, which was like kind of crazy at the time. And, they've always had a lot of working relationships, a lot of, foreign talent from across the globe that has come in from all over different places. So I wouldn't be surprised if they start expanding and bring, as far as like expanding potentially, not just, acquiring talent. I mean, that's something, again, I couldn't tell you where they should be looking to, get deals. But I mean, I don't think it hurts to potentially have revenue from television internationally in a lot of different markets, because that's something that benefits WWE. It's something that benefits AEW. And New Japan's done a bit of that in the past. And I think that if they intend to, run internationally, having a television presence first is going to be something that really helps them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room to grow in the UK. Since Speaking Out happened, a lot of UK indies kind of went down or got really smaller. So I think, also, Rev Pro is their partner in there, but I do think that they've had a lot of success bringing in UK talents. Also, Will Ospreay, Zack Sabre Jr. We're seeing Akira, ELP, Dan Maloney. There's a lot of guys who've come from Rev Pro, and I think they've created kind of a good base in the UK. I think there's, even outside of, England, I think there's probably room to grow in that whole like British Isles and UK area. His last question, he says, Kobe has a large Korean and Chinese community. Should New Japan invest in talent from those countries for whenever they have shows in Kobe? Dragon Gate has 2 Hong Kong wrestlers in Jason Lee and Ho Ho Lun. They are part of a subunit that Dragon Gate uses for Kobe shows only.
Well, you'd kind of have to imagine that if they intend to run in other parts of Southeast Asia, that they probably should open the doors to talents from other regions like that. But at the same time, I don't know how deep the talent rosters and wrestling scenes from other parts of the world really are. So that kind of remains to be seen. But it's not a bad idea. The other thing too is unfortunately there's a lot of persisting cultural racism that exists in Japan as well as other surrounding countries, and a lot of historic issues between different Asian cultures with one another, and long-standing feuds and histories and stuff like that. So, and I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to all that, so I don't know how that is viewed by parts of the public and stuff like that. But it's definitely something for them to kind of consider. If we were a little more knowledgeable about like the actual culture of Japan, I could probably give you a more succinct answer, but I'm not too familiar, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, also, not familiar either. And so, I mean, it makes sense. So if you're going to different parts of in different countries, you want to have a local star from whatever country you're going into. So if they
did run those shows in Singapore a couple of years ago, just before we started the podcast. I remember they even did an event, I think one in Bangladesh. They've done some India shows in the past as well. So they've done some stuff in Asia before.
Well, that's it for the questions. Are we doing a recommended match of the week?
Yeah, I guess we could do that.
All right. Well, the last rotation. So I have recommended, you have excursion. So for the recommended match of the week, I'm recommending AJ Styles versus Hiroki Goto from G1 2014.
Okay, great. And I am going to recommend the match between Satoshi Kojima and Yumo Aoyagi from September 3rd, 2023. We've also forgot to mention, I think like Julia just defended her Strong Women's Championship successfully.
Oh, yeah, I did think. I think that's what was her third defense now?
I don't watch the women's wrestling. And then I think Eddie Kingston also defended the Strong title on Dynamite.
That's right. Yeah, he defended against Wheeler Utah this past Wednesday on Dynamite.
Yeah, it's just the world of New Japan never stops.
Soon there'll be the title defenses in MLW.
Yeah.
Kojima coming for the gold. All right, well, that's going to wrap things up for us here this week. Next week, we'll be back to review the start of the Road to Destruction tour and cover all latest news. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation. Visit socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. Follow the network at Social Suplex. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Social Suplex. Also in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Instagram and Threads at KI Strong Style at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I am the Pro Black Guy, just keeping a strong style. You can email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com. And check out all those shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. And All Things Elite, hosted by Floyd Johnson Jr. and Austin Tumowitz. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichibon.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.